welcome to episode 10 of All About African Violets. I'm glad you're here. All About African Violets is musically sponsored by Ted Yoder. You can hear his wonderful music on his website and purchase his CDs at www.tedyoder.com. How are you guys? I hope you had a great week. Welcome back, and if you're new, welcome. I'm glad you're here. It's been another busy week here in Chicagoland. You know, I had my friend Tammy was here last weekend, and actually she's here again this weekend. She's not going to join us today on the podcast. She asked all her questions last week. But welcome to my sunroom. You know, speaking of questions, they were so popular that I have some more from the website, and so we will answer those today. But I was checking on the website because this is really interesting to me. And in the past 30 days, in addition to all of my viewers in the United States, there are viewers in Canada, Serbia, Germany, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, the Bahamas, Mexico, and Lithuania. This is great. Thanks, you guys. Please keep spreading the word. Well, let's talk about some questions. Now, I had a couple of questions from a woman, I think it's a woman named Sapphire Yin, and it could be a guy, I don't know. But I'm assuming she's a woman. She said, I bought my first African violet at a florist shop at the suggestion of an employee there. And I knew nothing about them until I got home and started researching. Next thing I knew, I became more and more interested. This is what happens. This is how it goes. You get one and all of a sudden you're like, wow, these are great. And she said, I became more and more interested but had made quite a few mistakes. So I repotted about 3 times, propagating many of the leaves and rerooting the mother plant. And now, as soon as you pointed out the fertilizer and perlite, I ran to check mine, and it turns out mine has it too. And my plants have been in a 1-to-1 mix. That means she's cut it half and half with potting mix and perlite. And since August 25th, will the fertilizer kill them? I don't think so. I mean, you've discovered it and you've repotted again, and now just let them rest. Be sure that you don't add any fertilizer, but let them just get on with their process of growing. I think that they should be fine. She said, I have ordered from Bluebird Greenhouses, their soil mix. And Bluebird Greenhouse is another great commercial vendor, and you can find their website. I'll link to it in the show notes. They're great. I get my coarse perlite from them. I have gotten many leaves and plantlets from them. They're really wonderful. And my goodness, it's warm in here today. I'm perspiring, sorry. The air conditioner has not kicked on yet. Then she says, that's it for that one. So, and then she says, another question. Now, this is an interesting question. Another question is about using animal manure as fertilizer for African violets. I'm close with a family that owns a big alpaca farm and visit them a few times a year. They usually have loads of manure and recently started a new venture of selling this as plant food. I will be getting a batch to try out, but what do professional growers think about the effects of manure for African violets specifically? As someone new to gardening, I would also like to know how to go about using manure as fertilizer for houseplants in general. Okay, Sapphire Yin, I gotta tell you, don't use manure in the house. First of all, it's gonna smell. I mean, if you've been out in the country driving by a field that has been recently fertilized with manure of any kind, you do not want that smell in your house. But I do believe that there are very specific reasons for not using an animal-based fertilizer in our houseplants. And I know that I've read this before. I'm gonna check in with my friend Joyce Stork and get the skinny on that for you next week. But I would really advise against using something like that inside your house. Outside, in your garden beds outside of your home, if you do garden outside of your home, then yeah, I'm thinking you could use that no problem. But for inside your house, I mean, there could be all manner of organisms and stuff in the alpaca poop. So I'm thinking skip that one, okay? Okay, I've got more questions. There's no more questions. It's great. And then she had a technical question for me. She said, I love your videos. I love your personality. Thank you very much. And all the work you do for the podcast. But she used to do video editing as a hobby, and says I'm having a problem with the balance between the music on my podcast and my voice. And you know what? I do the podcast here in my sunroom, and my camera, I'm sure, I asked Tammy about this, and you know, the music that you hear is stereo, Ted's wonderful music, but the sound that comes on my camera is probably not stereo, and Tammy said that that's likely what the issue is. I'm not a sound editor. I will certainly see what I can do to maybe equalize that a little more. And I'm sorry it was a problem for you. But I'm glad you're still watching. So now I have a question from my friend Ellen. Hi, Ellen. Tammy and I met Ellen in person last weekend. We had a wonderful time with her. And she says, so here is my rookie question. Do cats eat African violets? Some plants are like candy to my cat, and others she will completely ignore. Any info on the tastiness of violets to critters? And on a similar note, are they poisonous to humans or animals? I don't think they are, but there are so many varieties. To my knowledge, and I did a little research on plants recently because of Jupiter being here in my home, and I did have some house plants that would not have been good to have around animals. But to my knowledge, African violets are perfectly safe. Years ago, I had 2 cats. Their names were Bucky and Satchel, like the characters from the comic strip, and they were quite large. Bucky weighed about 18 pounds, and Satchel weighed about 17. They were brothers, and I was growing show plants. This was when I lived in Southern California, and Bucky thought that the plants were for him, and he got, just calmly walked onto the lower shelf of a plant stand, and I found little chew bite marks in a couple of the leaves, and I'm like, whoa, that's never gonna do, Buck. You cannot do that. So I used the squirt bottle, and he never got onto the plant stand again, quite frankly. He got the picture pretty quickly. I don't think they're poisonous. To my knowledge, they're not poisonous to humans. I've never, bit into one, so I can't tell you for sure, but I believe that they're quite safe, Alan, for humans and for animals. More questions. I've got another one. Oh, no, I've got another one, but I'm going to answer it during when we look at what's on the stands. It was from Kitty Bow. She asked me a question. So today, I thought we would talk a little bit about grooming violets and what that means. Now, I've mentioned that a couple of times when I've shown you, when we look at what's on the stands, I've shown you that one standard, and I've said a couple of weeks in a row, well, there's some leaves that need to go on this plant, and I said I'd show you how to do that. Well, this is the week. I taped or recorded I recorded some footage yesterday for you of me grooming a few of those plants that I'm trying to get ready for show. It's never too soon to start looking at your plants and seeing how they're shaping up and where you can help with that. And a really good reference, this is Tips and Treasures, guys. We've moved on to Tips and Treasures. You're going to see these. These are my note cards that I use sometimes when I'm trying to groom a plant. You'll see how I use these in the upcoming segment. But in Pauline's book, Growing to Show. Now this is my old copy. I know I should have pulled out the new one, but this is my tried and true favorite, the one with all the ripply pages that's gotten wet on the plant stand I don't know how many times. But Pauline has a very good section on grooming for symmetry. Okay, so she has a wonderful section about this in her book with great illustrations, and she talks about how symmetry is more than just the outer leaf ring of the tips of the outer leaves. It's really about the whole plant as a whole. And the reason symmetry is important is mostly for those of us who grow for show, because when a plant goes to show, it's judged by a scale of points that the AVSA, the African Violet Society of America, has created for plants, of different sizes, of different scales, of points, different types of plants. There are a variety of them, and those of us who are judges have to learn that and work with that when we're judging a show. And the symmetry of the plant is just as important as the blossoms. And I know I've mentioned this to you before, that I am rarely seduced by a beautiful blossom if the symmetry doesn't look like it's going to be up to snuff. And you'll see when I show you when you see the section on grooming, and then also see the look at the stands today, you're going to see plants that look kind of wonky. And then when you see Rob's Antique Rose, when I show it to you, I want you to notice that it grows in this perfect little rosette. It just kind of grows itself that way. And the more plants that you grow, then you begin to find these little gems that kind of grow themselves with very little coaxing and very little grooming. They kind of just fall in line and get with the program, so to speak. But it's never too soon to start learning about this and about how plants grow. Violets, the center rosette, the leaves grow in triangles. And you can see here, I hope you can see it, there you go. This one, Pauline has a great illustration of that triangular shape and how she's numbered the leaves there so that you can see what that really looks like. And this is a wonderful section, even if you don't grow for show, because you can make your own plants at home look great. And one of the things that I really talk about in the upcoming segment is something that confused me terribly when I was a new grower. All this talk of immature leaves, and there's an immature leaf on this plant and it needs to go, and how do I know that this is an immature leaf? And I'm going to discuss that further on the segment that's coming right up. So I'll see you on the other side. Hi everybody, we're in the kitchen, and today we're going to talk about grooming plants. And this is something that it took me a while to learn because everybody kept talking about immature leaves and how the immature leaves needed to come off the plant. And so I'm going to explain that to you because it took me forever to understand it. And I want to show you that this is a henna tattoo on my hand. It's Mindy that I got today. It's brand new at the Renaissance Fair up in Wisconsin. This will get darker tomorrow and then it'll fade over the next couple weeks. So if my hands are in the frame, you're going to see it, and I just didn't want you to be distracted by it. I got caught in the storm. We got the tail end of Isaac today, and it went all the way up to Wisconsin, and it rained really hard. I got soaked to the skin. So hopefully it's going to be okay. It's looking a little better now than it did initially. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. Here's my standard that I've been growing. It's called Western Moon, and it's got a bud here, blossom. Oh, that's going to be too dark. I'm going to have to leave it here. It's starting to bloom here. It's got another one over here and another one here. There's a couple there, but it's growing in a very nice rosette shape, which it should, but it has some leaves that need to go. You can see one here, and there's one here, and one here. Now, African violets, that rosette, the leaves grow in sets of 3. So you begin to see how they grow. It's kind of hard to imagine it first until you work with it. And in Pauline's book, all about effort, you know what, I'm going to show this to you later. She has a really great diagram for this so that you can learn to work with that. But so one of the ways to do this, like I said, I couldn't understand it. People were saying, well, this plant has immature leaves. And I'm like, what do you mean immature? Because to me, here, let me get a pencil. These would be the most immature leaves in the center of the crown because they were the youngest. But what this really means is a leaf that really didn't achieve its full potential. Now, on this plant, these leaves were some of the beginning leaves from the plantlet. So there are a couple of tricks to help you see the actual shape of the crown that you want. So I have note cards here. You can use a piece of tissue paper, toilet paper, just something very light in weight that you can just gently kind of place over the leaf that you want to get rid of, or that you think you want to get rid of, but under the other leaves, so that you can see what your crown is actually going to look like before you take these off. Now, it's looking pretty good. So that's what I think that's what I want to do. So I know where those leaves are, and it's just a simple matter of taking them and gently snapping those off. Now, you could take those leaves and put them down, but I'm not gonna, because I've got plenty of other plants here. Plenty of things growing on the stands. So here we go. Now, it's not perfect, but this was a very young plant, and this leaf is going to grow to fill this spot right here. This leaf will grow to fill this spot right here. So it just needs a little more time to fulfill its potential. I am going to let this plant come into bloom because I wish to see the blossom. I want to make sure that this plant is blooming true. So let's look at another one. This is Pink Pussycat, and there's a little bit of, there we go, water in the saucer. And it is a show hopeful. Wait, where's my mark? There it is. Sorry, my little mark. It's a show hopeful, but the symmetry is not looking so great. It's looking kind of wonky. So we have the same thing here. We've got an immature leaf here. It's kind of tucked under there. And we've got a really immature leaf. Want to see if you can see it in there? That little baby right there. And when you're actually looking at it, you don't hardly see it, but so it's got to go. So let's do this little trick again. And take another look. Now, you'll find the more plants you grow, you're going to begin to find ones that just grow for you. That's what they do. Okay, I think that is going to be a better choice. Can you see that it looks at least a little more symmetrical? It's not perfect. It's definitely got some gaps here and there, but it's better than this, which just looks like I didn't know enough to take these leaves off. And this is also something that comes with time and experience, because when you look at the plant, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm afraid to take any leaves off. So I often find when I'm a judge at a show that there are plants that have literally an entire row of leaves that should have come off, and the plant would have been a better and higher scoring plant if the leaves had come off. So we've got this one that's hiding down under here, that one. So that's got to go. Now, the other thing with these little teeny ones, you got to be careful if you have big paw hands like I do, because there's not a lot of room in there, and you don't want to get the wrong leaves off. Now, I had put a card over this one, and now that I see with the other two off, I'm looking at this one and I'm looking at this one, but so let's put this back here again. This is going to leave a real gap. So did you see that? Let me show you again. If I take that leaf, all of a sudden this plant is really going to have a hole there. So even though this is an immature leaf, and by rights it probably should come off, I'm going to leave it there for a while longer, because having this there, I look at this in terms of the points that I would lose as the judges were looking at my plant, I would lose more for a gap that size. That's like a 3-point gap, than I would for an immature leaf, which would be only 1 point, half to 1 point. So this plant is a show hopeful, and I looked the other day, and it's now, I don't know if you guys can see it. It's probably you can't, but there are little tiny blossoms down there that are coming up. So this one is looking good. Now here's one more. This is the last one we're going to look at. That was Pink Pussycat that we looked at. This is Optimara Little Inca Girl. And it kind of looks like it's all growing on this side. Sorry, there we go. Looks like it's all growing here, and this side is kind of naked looking. Well, and that's true. And it has made a good comeback from our start. Now we've got a leaf down here that really, another immature leaf. You see it under there? It's hiding. That's got to go. So once that one comes off, things begin to look a little more symmetrical. But I'm thinking, let's take that one right now. Pretty soon you begin to develop an eye for how this is going to look. This leaf needs to go, and this leaf needs to go. Aha! All of a sudden, we have a pretty good looking star there. It's starting to look good. Now, again, we've got some gaps here, but once these other leaves are gone, the rest of the leaves will be able to fill in. So, oops. We do have a definite gap right here, and I considered taking this leaf because it does look kind of wonky, but again, we have a great big hole there. So, that can be shifted over a little bit, and it will grow just great. So I hope this gives you a little idea of the beginnings of grooming your plants. It's never too soon to start doing that. As you are looking at them and checking them, you'll begin to develop an eye for, oh gee, that leaf needs to go. And you'll be able to just do that in your daily care of your violets. Well, we'll be right back. I hope that was helpful. I hope you learned something there. Grooming is something that's so critical for show particularly, and it's one of those things that is really within the grower's ability to make a difference, a real difference. So just in terms of grooming for leaves, there's more to grooming. There's cleanup, there's brushing the leaves, there's looking for cat hair and making sure it's not there. And we'll talk about that as we get a little closer to show. And it's time now to take a look at what's on the stands. Speaking of getting closer to show, I think I might have said the wrong week last week, but I am now 5 weeks out from the show in the Missouri Valley African Violet Council's show in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that's going to be in October, so get the bail money ready. We'll talk about that later. So let's go take a look at what's on the stands. It's time to take a look at what's on the stands. We're here back in my guest room, and this is the plant that we just looked at, and I groomed some leaves off it. I've been talking about that for a couple of weeks, and I was able to do that today. And see, these are getting big enough that I have to kind of take them off the stands for you to really see them. This is Rob's Antique Rose. We've been looking at this one for a while. The leaves have a little bit of haloing on them, so they're not ideal, but this plant has great symmetry. It just kind of grows itself. And you can see on the center leaves, the crown leaves, that haloing is going away. So that was a culture issue. Now let's take a walk around here. We've seen these already out in the kitchen when we were working on them. Here's another one. I did a little grooming on it here by myself. Now, I want to pull this one out. This is Blueberry Sprite. And this leaf, we looked at it last week, and it's really growing well. And this plant just wants to grow like mad. It has been wanting to bloom for a while. I'm letting this one come into bloom. This plant it looks pretty good as we're looking at it now, but the leaves themselves are a little bit almost like what's called a girl leaf. I'll explain that to you when I can. They don't want to lay flat. Let me just put it that way. But this one's coming along. I don't know. We'll see. If it blooms well, it could be a show hopeful. A good head of bloom will cover a multitude of sins. I gotta tell you. All right, well, that's the look in here. Let's head out to the sunroom and see the leaves. Okay, we're in the sunroom, and I had a question last week from Kitty Bow she wanted to know, do I use humidity domes on my leaf trays? And as you can see, I do. That's what this is a dome. See if the water is condensed on the inside there, and as I was tapping it, it started to drip down. It's making a mini greenhouse. I got this one. This is a 6-inch humidity dome. You can get them so that they're shorter, usually like in a seed starter tray, and I have used those as well. But these taller ones are great. I like them a lot. So let's take a look inside. For the last few weeks, I've taken the trays off, the domes off, so that you guys could have a better look at what's going on. But this week I'll leave it alone and just give you the long view. But everything is really doing well. Lots of baby plantlets popping up in there. And here we go to this tray. Boy, they look beautiful, don't they? These little plants are so gorgeous, just as babies. Look how green everything looks in there, and everything looks pretty healthy, really. So, a little leaf down there. And my plants from Illinois. Guys, I had another busy week. Let's go take a look at our plant that's in the self-watering pot. Okay, here it is. Now the air conditioner just kicked on, so you may hear it because I'm close to the vent over here. And it's doing really well. I checked it during the week, and so I did add water to the pot. It seemed to be low, so I did add some. And so that, I would say that I think it took us about 10 days before I had to add any water to this pot. So, and it's growing here. I turned it last week. It's got one twisty leaf, but sometimes that happens. It's looking really good. I'm really pleased so far. This is great. Now, someone asked me about this conservatory stand. Now, let me just put the lid back on, and although this one's not in the greatest of shape because all the plastic fell out, so there's nothing there. So it's not like a real greenhouse because the sides are still there, and a couple of the pieces are still there, and I still have all the pieces. I just need to glue them back. But I got this. Let me back up, and you could. Oh, don't turn that. Oh, I almost turned it. That would have given all of us vertigo. Sorry, I'm moving a chair. So you can kind of see it here, the whole thing. It's a really cool stand. I got it at Frank's, which no longer exists. Frank's was a nursery and craft place, an interesting combination that used to be here in the Midwest, and they closed, I suppose, 8 or 9 years ago now. They went out of business. But I'll tell you what, I sure loved them, and I sure miss them. Doesn't everything look beautiful in those trays? This is one of the most fun parts of growing violets, when you propagate leaves and those babies start sprouting up, and then they keep growing, and you're like, wow, it's working, it's great. So I'm hoping that I have a calmer week and that I can get some more work done on my plants. This is another wonderful thing about African violets, is it's been my experience that they are quite forgiving in sometimes in my inability to get to them in a timely manner. As you can see, the ones from Illinois are still hanging in there. Make sure they're getting water, they're getting light, and they're isolated on that shelf away from everything else. and the ones up above they are covered on the domes. And Kitty Bo asked about humidity domes. That's what those domes are that you see. And I had, as I mentioned, I'd been sort of taking them off the last few weeks so that you guys could see more easily the plants that were really growing. But it's so cool. And I'm going to check them this week. I think we've got one or two that are probably ready to be potted on. And this is another thing that took me a while to learn and figure out when are they ready to be separated from the mama leaf. So, well, get the bail money ready. Time for Get the Bail Money Ready. We still have the two shows that I've mentioned to you for the last couple weeks. The Ohio State, I gotta put my glasses on, I've turned into my mom. The Ohio State show is going to be in Mansfield, Ohio, September 14th through 16th. The Delta Gesnerian and African Violet Society, September 14th and 15th in Sacramento, California. Those are both on the AVSA website under the events tab, so do go and check there, and I will link to them in the show notes for you. And the Michigan State organization they're not having a show, but they're having what's called a display and sale, and that will be September 22nd in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And boy, those guys in Michigan, they grow some beautiful plants. You know, the national convention was in Detroit this year and got to meet a lot of the folks from Michigan. So I would imagine that their display and sale will be beautiful. So if you are in that area, definitely check them out. Well, it's time to keep moving forward. And like I said, it's been a great week here. I've had Tammy here for 2 weekends in a row. It's really been fun. Her husband Robert is with her this time. Yesterday we were at the Ren Fair. You saw my henna tattoo. It's looking a little better today than it did yesterday. It's looking a little darker. And I don't know if you would like to see it close up. I hope that's in focus. The lady there who does these really does such a beautiful job with the Mendi. It's called Mendi. It's an Indian henna, and it will disappear gradually over the next 3 weeks or so. But it's something that I always like to do. It makes me feel kind of like in touch with India somehow. I have an interest there, and I'd love to visit there. But one of the things that I had to do this week was frog a project. When you're a knitter, sometimes things just don't work out. And I had started a sweater with this yarn. It's a beautiful yarn. It's called Casbah, which of course attracts me because it makes me think of Morocco. And it's got merino yarn, and it's got cashmere in it. It's made by a company called Handmaiden. And this looks kind of like a football because I frogged the sweater that I had started with this, and I hadn't gotten very far. But I realized that it wasn't going to be a sweater that I was really going to wear. And sometimes, we have to let go and keep moving forward. So I made that choice, and now I've got this yarn, and we'll see what happens with it. But as you know, as I mentioned, I said I'm not often seduced by a beautiful blossom on an African violet, but I confess that I am often seduced by a beautiful skein of yarn. So I thought I'd share one with you today for those of you who are knitters. This is Shepherd's Sock. I don't have my glasses on, but it's Lorna's Laces, which she's a local Chicagoland dyer, but her beautiful yarns are available all over the country from different vendors. I happened to get this one from Jimmy Bean's Wool, but I got 2 skeins of her yarn. This one is called Dragon Baby. Isn't it great? It's got like blacks and greens and reds and gold. I just fell in love with that. That seemed like the perfect fall colors for an awesome pair of socks, isn't it? And I got one other one of hers, and this one is called Zombie Barbecue. So, brains, zombie. But so to keep moving forward, I had to let one go, but I have something new that certainly will be something beautiful at some point. Well, thank you for joining me today. I'm really glad you're here. Thank you for the continued star ratings and reviews on iTunes. It's so great and it's so helpful. Thank you very much. Please, if you have a question, please leave me a comment on the website. And like I said, if I don't know the answer, I will probably know someone who does. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope your days are filled with all the things you love. See you next time.